Welcome, folks, to the second off-season edition of the No Conference for Old Men podcast today, where the three old guys have a special guest in the University of Houston men's basketball assistant coach, Casey Beard, joining us for a bit of Q&A. This is year 2 of the podcast, so it represents an exciting evolution of the content we're now able to bring, with each of the men's basketball assistant coaches joining us for dedicated episodes. And Coach Beard is our very first one in this series. For fans that may not know, and hopefully I get this right, Coach Beard has been with University of Houston since 2014, starting as men's basketball video coordinator, and then being promoted to assistant coach in 2021. But he'd already had an extensive journey across multiple levels of basketball prior to joining the Cougars. I don't want to get into too much detail because we actually want to hear about your journey directly from Coach. But just before coming to Houston, Coach had spent a few years as the video coordinator for Canada basketball, where I believe that's where you crossed paths with Coach Sampson. And prior to that, Coach Beard had spent a few years in the NBA at both Utah and Portland as video interns for both franchises. In addition to those stops, Coach also had a couple of stints at Pacific and West Texas A&M as an assistant coach, as well as a start to his career at SMU. Coach Beard also received his bachelor's degree from Boise State University and a master's degree from West Texas A&M University. Super impressive background, and we're excited for Coach to join the podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Coach Beard, and thanks so much for taking the time out from your busy schedule.
Yeah, no problem. I'm excited to be here, and I think you guys do a wonderful job. And anytime we can talk Cougar basketball, especially in July, it's a good day. It's a great day. Happy to.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And so we've actually gathered some questions amongst ourselves and from listeners, but anything you wanted to kick things off with, or do we want to go right into the questions?
Why don't we just go right to the questions?
Awesome.
That'll help.
Okay. Well, so I started this off with some highlights of your background, Coach, but maybe you can spend a few minutes providing listeners with your own perspective on your kind of basketball coaching journey, how you became interested in the first place, how you got into the profession, as well as maybe the route you took towards advancement, especially with your stints on the video side, which maybe isn't the norm, as well as maybe your international experience with Basketball Canada as well.
Yeah. No, so the day I knew that I wanted to coach was I was 16 years old. I was a junior in high school. I played on the basketball team. I was our starting point guard. We actually had a game that day. But for whatever reason, they were allowing us to job shadow people. And at that time, I was thinking, maybe do like financial planning, real estate or something like that. I wanted to make money, right? A lot of people at that age just, hey, what makes money and has some freedom and those things. So I job shadowed a real estate agent, and I got to also meet with like a financial advisor for the day. And it was the most boring day of my life. And so no offense to any of those that do that out there. One of my best friends, is a financial planner, and I love talking with him and things like that. But for me, I was like, I can't do this. I can't wake up and do this every day. So at that age, I knew I wanted to be a basketball coach, specifically at the college and NBA level. And so every decision from that point on was kind of centered on how do I get there?
Yeah.
So that's the origin of the drive. And then from there, I graduated high school. I went on a mission for my church. I came back and I walked on to a junior college up in the state of Washington called Big Bend Community College. It was a great learning experience. Unfortunately, I realized this is about as far as my playing ability is going to be. But I had a really insightful coach there that gave me great advice. I told him I want to be a college basketball coach one day. He said, okay, if I was you, you need to go to as high of a level as you can and get as much experience at that level as you can. And then you can settle and fall in wherever you think, if it be junior college, Division III, Division II, whatever it may be. It's easier to go back down than it is to climb the ladder going up. And I didn't really understand that at the time, but I was grateful for it. So I decided at that time, I reached out to some Division I programs, and an assistant at Boise State met with me and said, we'll bring you on as a student manager if you come here. And
Nice.
all I needed to hear.
Yeah.
I wasn't planning. I mean, I would have gone anywhere, but it just worked out that it was more or less in the area where I grew up. And so it was nice to, funny thing is that's the only time I've been close to family essentially in my career. Every other time I've moved out, moved away and things like that. So I'm definitely grateful for it. So I did my undergrad there at Boise State, was a student manager while I was there. Greg Graham was the coach. Leon Rice is now the coach there, and he does a fabulous job.
Yeah.
And I was with Coach Graham, who was the previous coach. And I was fortunate enough, my senior year, we made the NCAA tournament. And you guys are aware of this as much as anybody. The currency in coaching is always winning. So I was fortunate enough to be there when we had, at that time, set a record for wins in a season, won the conference tournament, got to go play Louisville in the NCAA tournament, got beat, but that put me in a position to be able to get my first job at SMU under Matt Doherty. And I went from being, a student manager. I was, be at the office as much as I could, trying to learn. The coaches were so kind to me and allowing me to be around and teaching me, taking me on road trips, doing all that. I got to SMU and my first job was what they called at the time video intern. It was before video coordinators became a position that everybody had. So this was 2008, 2009. It was just starting to be a position at most universities. So before SMU made it a full-time job, they had an intern spot. Okay. So it was not for very much money, but that didn't matter to me. It was an experience to get in. And I spent the entire summer teaching myself video. I did not know anything about.
Wow. So you had to learn on your own.
So they had just invested. They had just built their practice facility. If you guys have been up to SMU and seen that, it's a beautiful facility. They had spent a lot of money, and they had invested, I think at the time, $250,000 in this video equipment. And, Bill, who sold video equipment and stuff, probably can imagine what some of this was. And I'm thinking, man, I just hope I don't break it. But
yeah, I can.
Enough. One thing I do have is I have work ethic. And so I would stay in there all day. I learned how to do it and had a wonderful experience there that year. But I knew that I needed to continue to progress. And so I went from there to West Texas A&M, which is a Division II school. For anybody that asks, where would you want to be a GA at the Division I or Division II level? I personally am partial to Division II because you get to get on the floor and coach. You get to get experience recruiting. You get to do a lot of those things that RGAs are awesome. They do a wonderful job, but they're somewhat limited by NCAA rules and some of the things they can do. Whereas these guys at the Division II level, they're like a coach. So,
interesting.
Got my MBA there, spent all my time essentially with basketball. Again, was fortunate to work for a really good coach and an assistant coach there who's one of my best friends now, Vinay Patel, who's the head coach at Angelo State now. So he's become a very, very successful coach himself. And so went from there to work in the NBA for the next 3 years. And so I spent 2 years with the Blazers, a year with the Jazz. Again, everything in this business, sometimes it's just timing and opportunity. My first year with the Blazers was the 11-12 lockout, and the coach was fired. So they brought in Terry Stotts the next year, who brought in Jay Triano, who was the national team coach for Canada. He needed a video coordinator. I just happened to be the intern in the video room, and they're like, oh, you can take him. So I spent that whole summer with him, and that's where I met Coach. And so Coach Sampson and I spent about 8 weeks together between Toronto, Puerto Rico, and then Venezuela. So we got to know each other, and I think the coach respected the hard work, and I know that Mrs. Sampson, I think she's the one that actually in a lot of ways got me the job. Because
nice.
I can remember we had an exhibition game before we left Toronto against Jamaica, and I had recorded the game, but then I had to cut it up for the coaches, and they had like a little social in one of the clubs there at the arena. This is where the Toronto Raptors play. That's where we played. And so I'm out there and I'm just working on getting the film ready for the coaches, because this is my first opportunity to be like a head video coordinator on this big of a stage. And so I'm just working. And Coach Sampson, along with his wife, Karen, came over and she brought me a little bit of food, and we just talked, and I just, told him what I was doing and kept my head down and kept working that whole summer and stayed in touch with Coach Sampson. And it just kind of worked out from there. That next year I worked for the Jazz. And then after that year, as Cougs fans know, Coach Sampson took the job. And after hiring his son and I think Coach Hollis, I think I was probably third on his list, and he reached out. The rest is history, as they say.
Yeah, no, that's incredible.
Nice.
It's interesting how these connections occur right through one's career. So.
Exactly. I think that's the best thing. I get asked a lot by young coaches, like, what's the best path? What should I do? A couple things I always tell them and admonish them, like, first of all, be really good at your current job. Whatever they hire you to do that well. A lot of guys in this business are spending so much time trying to get the next job that they don't do their current job well. So be valuable where you're at in your current job.
So you've obviously experienced, at all levels, right? National team, pro level, NBA level at the highest levels, as well as now college basketball at the highest levels. Do you have and there's no right or wrong answer. Everyone has their preferences around, right, what level of the game they prefer to stay in. Have you drawn any conclusions based on your own experience as to where you see yourself going as you continue to advance?
Yeah, no, I think there's both positives about positive, negatives, right, about everything that every spot, every level. For me personally, I love the Division I level. I love where I'm at. I would love to be, when the time's right and a head coaching opportunity presents itself. That would be obviously a goal of mine. And then I think if the time were right down the road, I did enjoy my time in the NBA. That would be also an excellent opportunity. But regardless, what I find to be most important is the people you work with. Working with Coach Sampson and the rest of the staff here is just awesome. Like, it really is a family. There's so much opportunity to grow and get to take on new responsibilities and do things that, you just don't get if you're just chasing job to job to job.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy with where I'm at right now.
Yeah, and we're so happy to have you as part of the coaching staff. I mean, as you had mentioned, right, you were part of the original staff as Coach Sampson came on board. Your role obviously has changed and evolved over time, right? Starting off on the video side and now being on the bench as an assistant coach. Obviously for the three of us that are diehard fans, we've followed and we know exactly who's on the coaching staff and a little bit of the roles. But for the general fans, maybe you can spend a few minutes describing kind of how your role has evolved and even the whole responsibilities of a video coordinator. I'm sure some of our fans aren't even too sure what that means and kind of where your role has evolved to now and whether you're actually, coaching a specific group of positions and things of that nature.
Sure. No, I think for me personally, it was such a blessing to be able to learn through the video. I wasn't Hollis, for example, who an All-American and sees the game from a best player point of view. And there's value in that. Coach Kellen was a walk-on at the Division I level. So he sees it through that lens. Coach Quanis, when he was here, sees it through that lens. Coach Mike now, former player. So I think my perspective is a little bit different. Going through the video room, one thing that was of value to me coming up, especially here with Coach Sampson, is because of his time in the NBA. In the NBA, video coordinators are leaned on very heavily. They're involved on the floor, scouting reports, all those different areas. And so whereas maybe just a traditional college coach may think, oh, he's just the guy that gets my video ready, make sure it runs. in the NBA, they're seeing obviously Spoelstra, other guys that have come through the video room. I believe Mike Brown.
Yep.
So, they go on to progress to become coaches. And coach told me that when he hired me, his goal was to groom me to be able to become an assistant coach. And then, from there. And so he didn't see me as just a video guy. And so he allowed me to anything that I saw in practice or game film or scouts, I could bring to him and be like, hey, coach, this is what I'm seeing on film. Over the 7 years, it really evolved to where a lot of our instead of us watching, for example, the game in total as a staff and marking clips, to by the end of, I did that for 7 years, I would create an edit and I would have it ready for the coaching staff. And then obviously we've all watched it, but then that kind of made us more efficient. So it was, this is the, I would find common breakdowns or things we did well, or, you know what I mean? And kind of group in a way that now we can be, 3 to 6 minutes long and just boom, be very efficient and allow us to all get on the same page and make sure that we're not just too scatterbrained on, what exactly went well in the game, what do we need to fix, and let's address those. And so now we have an excellent video coordinator, probably the best in the country, in Matthew McDonald. And now he's in that same role, and coach is giving him a lot of that same responsibility because he was a student manager with us, GA, he was the TBT coach. You guys are obviously aware of Matt, and he's got a great mind for basketball. And similarly to how coach viewed me, he's allowing Matt to grow in that role. And Matt is having his voice heard within our program, and things that he picks up watching European basketball or NBA, he can take to coach. So I think that video coordinator role is really important on staffs, and especially for Coach Sampson, because it's someone that he relies on in a lot of ways to just help keep us up to date on what are some of the current trends going on in basketball and in technology that could help us.
Okay. And how about now? Now is your role has expanded and evolved. What are you focused on now as part of the staff?
Yeah. So going from being in the video room to being an assistant, now what has probably been one of the real special parts is because you're involved in the recruiting of these student athletes, the relationships, you've known some of these players for, 5-6 years by the time that they graduate. As a video coordinator, I got to see them when they came on the visit and things, but you could almost remain a little bit impartial because you don't have, now it's like you do definitely pull for each one of them and your heart goes out to them because the journey they've all had. And you've been involved with them since you've seen them, in their junior year of high school, their senior year, or, if they're in the transfer portal, you're the one that did the legwork and got to know and collect or identify that they are someone that fits us. And so what I really enjoy outside of, where I was very much X and O's minded coming from the video room.
Sorry about that. I think we ran into some issues with Tom's computer, and so we had a bit of a snafu here, but I think we're back. So apologies for that, Coach Beard. If you can kind of continue around your thoughts around your current role and kind of the interaction with the kids, that'd be great.
Yeah. As a former video coordinator that dealt with a number of mishaps, something not working, I certainly understand and grateful that we can continue. But I think it's the relationships that's been the most important part to me now is just, man, you just really, your heart goes out to each one of our players and you want them to do well. You know how much work they're put in. And then when they do have games where they do really well, it really, is special to be a part of. You get to help these young men achieve goals and dreams that they've had since being young and get to do it as a team and with the coaching staff that we have, it's really special. Other responsibilities I work with the fives specifically.
Okay.
So I like myself and Coach Mike work with the fives, and we like to call ourselves Motor Club. And The reason being is if you play that spot, you got to have a motor. You got to be able to get to our pick and roll coverage on defense, do everything we ask of you defensively. Then you've got a rim run. You've got to sprint out, go set ball screens. It's tough to do it without having a motor. And it's such an important part of, almost similar to offensive linemen in some ways, right? They may not always get the credit they deserve, but I know the way, for example, last year that Javier and JoJo anchored that spot for us really was a difference maker when we go against a lot of these teams. So I like to say we will, we're the motor club, and that's what we got to bring every day is a motor.
Nice. So
if you're working specifically with the fives, how are our well, there'll be, I guess, 3 new fives this year, 4/5s, CNAC, McFarland. I've heard McFarland's looked pretty good lately. And then, of course, our Sam Houston transfer.
Well, yeah. I was actually going to clarify, though. We can't assume anything, Bill. I was going to say, hey, maybe we can get a preview here. Who's actually going to be playing the 5 position in next year's iteration? Is it still going to be JoJo, or is it going to be, Sanak or one of the new kids, or how's that shaking out?
Yeah, no, it's been really good. Obviously, JoJo returning National Defensive Player of the Year is definitely going to anchor us there at that spot. From there, both Said, Khalifa have really had great summers, and then Jacob, obviously coming back from the injury, is really shown some bright flashes. It's been, again, awesome to see him come back and, play in some live action and get back out there for the first time, and just the mental relief that is for him, that I can do this and I'm back. And he's shown, to your point, some really, really incredible things that he's been able to do. Chris has been awesome. There's not a more coachable player on our team that wants to get better, that's got that burning desire. We're excited about all of them, and they're all working hard, and they're all putting in effort, and they're all very deserving of any opportunity that comes their way.
Yeah, it's great to have all that depth. It's kind of unprecedented.
And you've got to have that at the level that we're at, and what we, the standards that we've set here. You don't get there if you don't have depth in that front court. You got to have it.
Yeah. So, you brought up all these great kids that you're coaching, and obviously trying to reach each of the kids or motivate the kids. It can vary, right? Person by person, individual by individual. What's kind of your philosophy around communicating and coaching up the kids, kind of in your experience, what your philosophy is around that?
That's a good question, because to your point, they're all different. They learn differently, especially in the summer. I think as much as anything, as a coaching staff, we're learning, for example, how does Khalifa learn? What's going to be best for him? How's Chris going to learn? And so you're seeing some of their mistakes, and then how do we correct them and get them better? I know one thing, obviously coming from the video room, I'm very partial to hey, we're going to show and watch a lot of video. You guys are going to see what you've done well, see how you're not reacting here, be it on offense or defense, and then showing them a clip of us as a team in the past, like whether it be JoJo, Josh Carlton, Javier, how they played and how they played that situation out in a game, so they know what it looks like. And then take it to the floor, try to, in some type of breakdown drill, show them hey, this is where we need you to rotate, or this is where we need you to get to the line of scrimmage and stop the ball. This is what you've got to do. And then from there, once they get the idea of what it is, now the real secret sauce is getting them to do it at a high enough level to be Cougar basketball, right? To meet Coach Sampson's approval. It's one thing to, you can go out there and do it half-heartedly, but you're going to be sitting by me. You're not going to get game time. You're not going to get to play. So you've got to learn how to do it. You got to learn the fundamentals, and then can you increase the speed at which you do that to be to our standard?
Yeah, nice. Hey, Bill, do you have some questions on the recruiting front that you wanted to pose?
On the recruiting front, well, I guess recruiting player retention is kind of the lifeblood of most programs. I guess retention hasn't affected us as much because I think probably due to the culture, and we talked about this with Alvin Franklin, the culture that the basketball program has, and that obviously that you've been instrumental in building. A couple players, Mark and Arsenault have left, but really, very few. And so I guess I just ask what the specific role you play in terms of recruiting the kids, and what's been so successful in terms of from your standpoint in terms of keeping the kids in the program and just building such an exceptional culture.
Yeah, the real key, and Coach will tell you this, and anybody that is in our program, is just how high of character that each one of our kids are and our players. It starts there. You're not going to have a culture of retention if it's a bunch of guys that, don't follow rules, that, don't play hard, that are selfish, that have those characteristics that people don't want to be around. Then you're going to hit the portal. You're going to find other options. So as a recruiter, I know a major thing for each one of us that has that assignment and responsibility is evaluating people, evaluating, can they be coached hard? Do they have what kind of patterns have they shown in the teams that they've been on? From, do they switch teams every year? Do they stay with certain people? Who's been in their life consistently? Do they have, be it their parents or anybody, how have they raised them? And really identifying a lot of that. Obviously, after you assess that the talent level's there, is then it's a dive into, is this a person that when it gets difficult, because it will, playing in our program is going to push you. Coach Sampson is going to challenge you. Are you going to be someone that has that character that can get through it? And then our job specifically, and the reason I think our retention's so high, is we're not just going to get you to campus and never talk to you again, and just pray that it works out, that you're a good player and everything works out. No, we're going to continue to develop the relationship. We're going to continue to coach you. And that way, I think when they look at options, even some that maybe don't get to play as much as they would like their first year, they've been treated really well. They've been coached hard. They've gotten better, and they know, and because as they say, the proof is in the pudding, they've seen guys like Jamal not play much as a freshman, get drafted. They've seen guys like Marcus Sasser, again, come in as an unheralded freshman, become a starter by the end of his freshman year, and then become a draft pick. They've seen guys go through, develop, and achieve their goals. So they know that if I hang in here, if I do what I'm told to do, it's going to work out. They have, meaning us, these coaches have a history, a track record of doing that. Whereas if I hit the portal, there's just no guarantees. And, we hated losing both, Tremont and Terrence. They're great. You're not going to find better kids, better people. But sometimes there's, for reasons outside of that we may know or whatever, they may, those are going to happen occasionally. But it's our job to do what we can to make this an environment that they want to be a part of. And I think we've done as good a job as anybody, obviously, given our track record.
Yeah, absolutely.
Most people are like, well, how many portal kids are you bringing? I was like, we brought in one.
Yeah.
That's it.
Just shocking, right?
Yeah.
In today's world.
Yeah. So
it's definitely a special place.
But let me ask a follow-on question on the recruiting front. I know, Coach Sampson and the staff have always talked about not looking at recruiting rankings and player rankings, right? You guys are the judge of the kids yourselves, and obviously that's always going to be the case. However, there's no denying the fact that the caliber of player that you guys are recruiting now has definitely elevated year over year. And my question is, compared to when you guys just arrived and you were really spotting these talented kids that maybe hadn't developed yet, but you saw some potential there, and you know the hunger and the desire is going to be there to fit in with the culture. As you guys have started to target, more, high-end kids, is it more difficult to find kids that can fit into the culture, right? With still that level of hunger and desire and wanting to learn that you guys always look for.
I would say that aspect of it, specifically about finding the guys with the hunger and the drive, that has not changed one bit. Now, the rankings following a player maybe has changed, obviously, in the years that we've been here. I know even for me, from my first year, being out on the road and offering kids, to now we are a program that kids put down on like their vision board of, I want to receive an offer from Houston.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Flashback to 2014, they may not have taken our call.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But now when we call, they're taking it. And it's something that, again, because Coach Sampson's so good at what he does and he's built this program into what it's become, that it's something that people are attracted to, right? And so these kids that have goals, they know, all of these guys know that in order to get where they want to go, you got to be coached hard and you've got to be coached well. And we do that at the highest level. And so we actually attract more of those like-minded kids into our program, competitive kids. And now it's just about evaluating them and almost choosing and finding the right ones, because there's a lot that want to, again, be a part of our program, but which ones, again, just the next level for us, really fit us, and their families, their support really fits us as well, that when they have a tough day, they're not going to bail on it. They know that, again, in the long run, this is going to be the best route for this individual, this player, and the proof, is there. It's there year after year.
Yeah, no, that's great insight. Now, if we look at this past year, obviously on the performance front, another record-setting basketball season, ran away with the Big 12 championship by an even larger margin than in year one. Incredible success. Obviously tough the way the season ended. Clearly the formula works, but as you're, continuing to tweak and as part of continuous improvement, was there any takeaways, right, after this past season in terms of, hey, we need to get more, I don't know, athletic, or there were things, gaps that we need to bridge just to get over kind of that next step and get that first national championship?
Sure. Obviously, after every season, not just this last one, but after every season as a staff, you evaluate what went well, what are areas to improve, and areas of focus. At what we're doing, for us, with all the new players, we're adding a blend of experienced players and youth or newcomers in Khalifa. Really, just the summer is really getting in the foundation. So I don't think that has changed. We know that June and July are very important to establishing the culture and establishing, our base foundation defensively, so that as we flow into the season, that we've got the reps in place, the guys are understanding it. I tell, I have talks with our incoming freshman, Isaiah at times. I told Isaiah, once you understand our defense and you can become a playmaker in it, the rest of everything else will take off. And I think that's for any individual within our program. And I think the growth you could see was especially in Emmanuel, who as a freshman was not a great defender, right? Probably a little bit more of a liability defensively at times, but could really shoot, gave us something that we needed with that team. His evolution from there to being now, in a lot of ways, we put him on their other team's best player, and that's a testament to him and his hard work, but he learned the system. He had someone in Jamal who was patient with him and got on him when it was time, but helped him learn and understand the system. And obviously Coach Quanis and breaking down and teaching the guards. And then now when Coach Sampson got him, and once he understood the system, now he becomes a playmaker. Now everything else makes sense. And so right now there's enough new guys, and we're trying to develop that chemistry defensively, because that's kind of the secret sauce right there. Once that's established, we know we're going to find ways to score. We're going to find ways to do things offensively. We've got to get right defensively. And once that's established, then we can work on maybe some of the things that we noticed that, hey, this year we got to improve on.
Yeah.
But we'll kind of take that as it goes, and with new personnel and going from someone like Jaywan, down on the block and more of a low post 4, to Chris, who's got the ability to be on the perimeter when he's at the 4, is going to give new spacing and new opportunities. So there's going to be new things. So, if we had returned the exact same team, there might be bigger adjustments we'd have to consider. But when you bring in new guys, it's what is our foundation that's got to be there. So we got to stick with, as people say, your Bible. What's our Bible? We got to stick to the Bible, and then we can go from there. If the Bible's not there, we're not going to be very good.
Yeah, I mean, you've obviously got to – I don't even want to say adjust, but you've got brand new players in, 4 freshmen and Khalifa. So, 5 new players. So you obviously have to tailor things to them. But in terms of tweaking what you're doing or anything like that, I mean, we were 2 points away from being the national champion. So I'd say the base strategy and what you're doing is I can't imagine that's being tweaked too much, because it's certainly working and certainly successful.
Yeah, there's no doubt. We're not gonna mix or mess that up for sure. We got
right
locked in on what works, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's all the questions that we had queued up for today. And I also want to be sensitive to Coach Beard's time. So thank you so much for the deep insights into kind of your background and how you approach coaching and your role on the team. Any final words or points that you wanted to highlight today that we haven't covered, Coach?
I think just the last thing is, again, want to thank you guys for having me and taking the time today to allow.
Yeah, no need for that.
Yeah, no need for that.
Yeah, we're the grateful ones.
Yeah, we're the grateful ones. Sure.
And then I'm thankful for all the fans out there that support us, that travel with us, that give us the support on the road, at home in the Fertitta Center. We don't achieve a lot of this without your guys' support. So I'm very grateful for all that you guys do and the fans out there.
All right. Thank you so much, Coach.
Yeah, so thank you very much.
Yeah, so that's it for this episode of 54 of the No Conference for Old Men podcast. Hope you all enjoyed it. And again, would really appreciate it if folks would follow, subscribe, or collect our podcast, depending on your podcast platform of choice. We're also available via the Republic of Football podcast feed from the folks at Dave Campbell's Texas Football as their only basketball-centric podcast. We're at the GoCoogs.com website for those that prefer to digest the content that way. We appreciate the continued support from all. Also, please give us a follow on our Twitter account, No Conference for Old Men. And again, we are in our monthly cadence now during the offseason, but please stay tuned as we're working on getting some of the other assistant coaches on the show as well. So please be on the lookout to download and listen for the next episode to drop. Take care, everyone.